Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here. I have never attended this symposium. It's my first time to attend. So thank you very much for inviting me. Nature Kenya is the BirdLife partner in Kenya. And that means we also work with other BirdLife partners. And the work that I'm going to present, particularly, we have worked with the RSPB for about 8 years now on this particular campaign that I will be presenting about. Advocacy campaigns. I'm the advocacy manager, so if I use advocacy and campaigns interchangeably, just understand. But from our perspective as Nature Kenya, campaigns is what we do when we have failed to convince policymakers to act using other means, using persuasion and other ways of engagement. That is when we do a campaign. And so for us, a campaign happens when there is a crisis. And how does it work? For one, within the organization, advocacy needs to sit really high up at the level of the board. And particularly, it is because with a campaign, sometimes anything can happen. It may not go as anticipated. Something can go wrong. For instance, you can have a court case and you lose with costs. So a campaign needs everybody's support within an organization. But also, very importantly, we need, as organizations that engage in campaigns, before we even decide that for this particular issue, we are going to have a campaign, we are going to start a campaign, what are the chances of winning? What are the chances of succeeding? From where we stand as Nature Kenya, there is no point getting into a campaign where the chances of winning are very low. It has to be really high. And no matter how many organizations are involved in a campaign, any particular campaign is driven by mostly a single organization. Others may come in to support, but the driver tends to be just one. And within that organization, an individual is the center of the campaign. So yeah, we can be many what we are campaigning for this, but at the end of the day, it boils down to an organization and an individual. And for instance, I'll be talking about the Tana River Delta. That is a photograph of the Tana River Delta as it is today. And that is the government vision, the government of Kenya vision of the Tana Delta. So when you look at it, at this, you can see all this area is supposed to be converted into plantations. And oil and gas exploration in that area, and is a place of high biodiversity value. Very high biodiversity value, birds and other wildlife. Around 102,000 people live there. So when I talked about the crisis, for us, this was the crisis. Because when you look at it, you don't see where people are, where the wildlife is. You just see the commercial agricultural projects. And when this started, the proposals for the different projects started in 2007. And we did what we normally do as a conservation organization. We told them it's important for wildlife. We gave them the lists of the birds, of the lions, of all the wildlife. Categories of threat. We told them about people who live there. We thought we had said everything. We commented on the environmental impact assessment. We met the decision makers. We talked to the media. But then we realized that the project, the main project, which was a sugarcane farming project for biofuel, was actually backed politically. And almost nothing we could say could make a difference. And so what did we do? We commissioned a cost-benefit analysis. We had never done that before. And so we started talking in terms of money. I remember there have been presenters here from Monday. So we started talking in terms of money. And I want to emphasize that this cost-benefit analysis, we did not do it as NGOs. Though we had come together as many NGOs, we talked to university lecturers, senior lecturers from 2 main universities, to conduct the cost-benefit analysis for credibility. So that, we are not just told, oh, the NGOs went and did a study. And they were able to show that it was more beneficial to continue with the current uses of the Tana River Delta, the farming, the fishing, the pastoralism, compared to the sugarcane. And also assumptions had been made about land and water, where the developer assumed that that is free. But the cost-benefit analysis was good. It got global attention. We had coverage from The Economist, from BBC, from Kenyan media. And everybody said the project is not viable. But the project was approved to proceed. So the facts do not always change the decision making. It depends on the drivers of whatever, if it's a project like this one. And so I would say that the evidence is always very good, because it's not possible to run a campaign without evidence, because the facts must back what we are saying. But then when we get into campaigns, we have, on top of the evidence, we need to do all these other things, which for the Tana River Delta, we did. We formed coalitions. The monkeys and the birds do not vote. So, and the key voice is not the NGOs. Because if it's just the NGOs, then somebody will say, oh, it's the NGOs again. So, very important to put the local community, who are the voters, into the center of the campaign. Then we did the petitions. We campaigned in the home countries of some of the developers, taking advantage of the presence of bird life in these countries. We worked with the media, but actually what stopped the project was a court case, because we realized that we could be talking as the Delta is being converted. And so, but this particular court case, it was not the NGOs who went to court again. We supported the communities to go to court for many reasons. If you lose, then it's public interest. If an NGO goes to court and loses, and maybe the developer decides to be harsh, then you are slapped with costs. But also, it's important for the true owners of the resource, the people who are at the center of the issue, to be seen to be the ones who are fronting the campaign. And so So what? We started working in Tana River Delta in 2007. And it's been an area of controversy. It was an area of controversy for like 20 years already. And the issue was, why is there no lasting solution? And so what were we going to offer the government? They see the area as important for development. The people want development. People are poor. But the wildlife is also found there. What is a win-win situation? And so what we were proposing to the Kenyan government was that budget for the land. Prepare an integrated land use plan with the communities at the center of the planning. Through consultation. You know, in Kenya, the legal threshold for consultation is putting a notice in the national newspaper. But in Tana Delta, only 30% of the people are illiterate. The newspaper never gets there. So what is real consultation? So we managed to convince. So the point is, for a campaign, it's important to be able to give a solution, but also to be part of the problem solving. And so we lobbied the government to initiate the land use planning in 2011, and they agreed. And so, but there was an issue, because the community was unwilling to talk to the government at that particular time. They were very hostile, because they were like, the government has created this problem in the first place. So now you have a solution. No, we don't trust you. So we had to negotiate separately with the communities and with the government to convince them that this particular land use plan is not just going to be business as usual. It has to be done differently. And to convince them that the plan needs to be informed by a strategic environmental assessment, especially to budget for the water, because the value of the land is determined by water. And Tana River Delta is a conflict area. We have farmers, we have pastoralists. They have a history of conflict. They fight over the water. So it is possible, when going in to just talk about land, it's possible to ignite conflict just by saying that we have come to do something about land here. So the few things that we did, or the main things that we did, one, we let the government lead. So we told them, we looked for funding. We got funding from DFID. We talked to various government bodies, from parliament and different ministries, planning, lands ministry, different. And they agreed that it is time to find a solution, especially with the court case ruling, which was saying the government should not do any development in the Tana Delta without consulting the communities. So what is the way forward? Is to talk. And so first we agreed to lead from behind. So for the government, they felt it is their initiative. And also, an NGO cannot plan. It's the work of government. So that planning, which started in 2011, just ended last year. A lot of work was done. Government officials actually went to 103 villages to talk to the villagers. Each village, what do they want to see in the plan? What don't they want to see in that plan? But also, because we were proposing a balance between conservation and development, still with the same project funded by DFID, we were able to demonstrate to both the government and the communities what we are talking about. How can you increase production without opening new areas and things like that? And so for the land use plan, it is backed by the facts. So you can see, based on scenario building, that shows what would happen if nothing was done. Business as usual. You can see an increase in conflict because of increased overlaps of land uses. Everything overlaps with everything else. And then we have the development. If we just go full-scale development, there's an overlap there. That's conflict. And then this is the proposed hybrid scenario. And because of the level of analysis that went into this work, it was really never challenged. Because every question that was asked, it was backed by data. So that worked really well. And I just want to move towards a conclusion. I think my time is up. Campaigns work, but it is also important to expect the unexpected. Right in the middle of the planning, the community started fighting over the same land. And we didn't want to be mentioned as to be fueling that conflict. The government of Kenya, the governance system changed from national government to county government. So we started lobbying all over again to get everybody on board because we had new people to deal with. And then also things like flooding. But we produced a product which is currently a finalist in the Royal Town Planning Institute Awards for Planning Excellence here in the UK. So at least now we think it is a good product because it's not just us who think it is good, others also think it is good. And this particular process is also being replicated elsewhere in Kenya and in Africa. That is a photo of the lounge in Nairobi. That is the governor of Tana River, of Lamu, and that is the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Environment. So you can see the level of buy-in. So for us, the lessons are, we need to negotiate. To be able to get where we are going. For people, for biodiversity. We have to be innovative for a campaign to succeed, because it's not just about winning. It's about people's lives, it's about wildlife. And we have to work at several levels: local, regional, national, international. And we can't just work within a project, because NGOs tend to work within a project mentality. But you have to persist long enough to see the results. This is work which has taken 8 years. And you can't get one project for 8 years. For the negotiator, you need to be accessible to the community. They need to have your trust, to believe that what you are saying is really for their benefit. Flexibility, particularly for the land use plan, it is important to use the best available science. There was a bit of discussion around this. And I remember, even up to today, we still have critics for the land use plan who think the data was not perfect. And we agree. The data for the strategic environmental assessment was not perfect. But we thought if we wait until we have the best data, it would be too late for people. It would be too late for the wildlife. So we just agreed, yes, it's not perfect, but let's use the best available science to help the decision making at that time. And it's a game of numbers. These are our partners. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Serah. Fabulous presentation, bringing home the important message of ensuring that not just we talk about evidence-based policy a lot, but ensuring we have evidence-based campaigning in place, the multiple dimensions of decision-making, the scientific, political, economic, social elements, and other very important messages. Thank you very much. I think we have time for maybe 2 or 3 questions we have a couple of roving microphones, I believe. around the room? Thank you. Yeah. So if we've got a couple of questions, you've got one at the back there. Thank you. Please just introduce your name, where you're from, and then ask the question.
Hi, I'm Pete Brotherton from Natural England. Sarah, that was brilliant. Thank you very much. You said early on that that you needed to assess the likelihood of an advocacy campaign succeeding before you started that campaign. How do you do that?
Beyond gut feeling.
Thank you for that question. One, the law has to be on your side. Two, there needs to be scope or probability of other like-minded organizations to support the campaign. Also, the possibility or a high likelihood of communities, in this case, because it is a local community thing, to support you. So I think maybe just I can say those, and partners also, because you need partners at all the levels. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Other questions for Serah? Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Nick Isaac from Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. You talked about wildlife, and you talked about the interests and the livelihoods of the local community. You didn't talk about the degree to which those interests are aligned, and I would assume, or I'd guess, that in this case, and for a successful case, they need to be quite well aligned. So my question is, is it always clear to you the degree to which those two interests are aligned, and do you decide sometimes to not campaign on an issue where the interests of the local people and the wildlife may actually be in conflict?
Thank you.
You see, for this particular case, the communities are farmers, they are pastoralists. And the larger part of the delta is a delta, so it's a wetland. So for grazing, it's mostly used in the dry season. In the wet season, it's flooded. And the issue is that the traditional land uses are not in conflict with conservation. That is why there is still wildlife there. The case where there may be conflict between people and wildlife. First, for there to be conflict between people and wildlife, it means that already the current uses are compatible with conservation. Because if they are not, there would be no conflict because there would be no wildlife. So the issue is, most of the time people are not hostile towards wildlife. It's just the encroachment into the wildlife corridors and dispersal areas and things like that. So the issue is to sit together and find a solution. You will be surprised that what you think the community is thinking is not. For instance, the Maasais kill lions. But do they want to? If you sit with them, you may be really surprised. They want to conserve those lions. So most of the time, the solutions is, I guess what I am saying, it's better not to go into something with a fixed mind and trying to think as an expert, we already know what the solution might be. It's always better to sit down with the people and come up with those solutions that come from the bottom up, including the government officers. Yeah.
Excellent. And we should recognize it's often the social conflict that has impacts on wildlife as much as the human-wildlife conflict in a particular area. And the Maasai lion example would be one of those. Okay, I think we've had a good time. So thank you ever so much, Serah, again. And